Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting. To the 250 people in the gallery there, can you please switch off your mobile phones? And we'll get right on with it. It's a very large agenda, as you can probably see, so we'll start with apologies. Oh, I've got Councillor Nawaz. Okay. Late items, there's none to be introduced. Declarations of interest? None. Minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of August. Thank you. And we'll get on to the appeals decision. Ian's going to tell us about them.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For to report, the first two land at 36 Bendall Green, Little Over, and 23 Charnwood Avenue, Little Over, both dismissed. They were for single dwellings. The first one at Bendall Green was on a rear garden plot, so sort of our principal concern was its impact on the character of the area in terms of layout and intrusion into a fairly unbroken rear garden aspect, and the inspector agreed with our position on that. And the second one at Charnwood Avenue was a corner plot, impact on two neighbours. He agreed also that there would be an adverse impact on residential amenities in terms of the siting and layout of that plot, which was a full application. So they were two good decisions for us in terms of those particular policies. And the third one was a works of trees under a TPO, which was allowed with conditions. It was a slightly strange one because it was relative to an oak tree, and on closer inspection it was actually two oak trees, and the inspector had a thorough site visit and felt that there were reasonable circumstances surrounding the application. Clarified the scope of the application on site with a colleague and the appellant, so there were fairly minimal works actually in the end, so we were okay with that, even though it was allowed. And the final one is an unusual one, an appeal against a remedial notice for a high hedge complaint, which they're pretty rare. We get probably a handful a year. This particular case was, we felt it severely impacted on a particular neighbour, the one at 54A Crayford Road. We issued what we call a remedial notice, which once we've done an inspection of the hedge in question, done a fairly objective appraisal to determine the action hedge height, which is a formula laid down by government, and also spoken to an arborist about it, because you've got to balance the objective assessment and the action hedge height, and also look at the arboricultural implications as well. It took the height of the hedge, as it's presently around about 12 metres in height from ground level, down to 2 metres, and the inspector agreed with us that that was the right height for this hedge. It shaded the whole of the garden at 54A Crayford Road. The site visit took place mid-afternoon on a sunny day, and all the rear garden was shaded, so it showed the true impact of the hedge. And the only thing he disagreed with in terms of the decision, because it says allowed in part with conditions, he felt that it should be a longer two-stage process for reducing the height of the tree. So he's given the person 22 months to do that, and he felt that the decision was issued on the 16th of August. It gave them until the 16th of October to do the first cut down to 7 metres, and then a further 2 years to take it down to 2 metres. So that is a good result. We feel it was quite a problematical complaint and situation, because the hedge owner wasn't easy to contact, and so we had trouble establishing contact. But we went through the proper process. We went through the objective assessment together with the arborist consideration of things, and we came to the right decision that was vindicated in the end, albeit the time for reducing its height was extended by 2 years. So that's all to report, Chair. Happy to answer any questions about any of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I take it no questions. Right, moving on to the main item, item 6, Tree Preservation Order 2016 number 586, Epworth House 3 Stewart Street. And to give us his wealth of arboricultural knowledge, we promoted Andy Hill to tell us about this.
Thank you, Chair. If I'd known, well, we could have actually gone and had a site visit of this tree, because it's literally just across the road on Stewart Street. So the report summarises and comments on an objection to a tree preservation order that we made at 3 Stewart Street, Epworth House. And the reason for the objection actually came from an ARB expert, Margaret McQueen, who was employed on behalf, who was representing Methodist Homes. And really there was 2 main factors to her objection. One was it wasn't clear that about the process we had gone through to decide we wanted to put a TPO on this tree. And she was challenging the fact that, you know, what methodology did we use? So in the report, we have appended the actual pro forma that we go through when we consider any TPO. And that's appended to the report, which considers a range of different factors. And that methodology is actually taken from the methodology that Leicester City Council use. And it gives us a rough feel if the tree is worthy of a TPO by looking at its size, its life expectancy, its form, its amenity, which is always going to be quite subjective. That means what value has it in terms of its visual impact in the area. So, you know, we've evidenced all that in the report. And then a second main objection is to do with the fact that Margaret is basically saying that the tree is causing the property and the boundary wall and the paving some uplift. And that was not evidenced, or that was not reported when Methodist Homes approached us about removing the tree. They said basically, and this is all in the report, that the tree was just, it was dropping pine needles and sap on people's cars. There was no evidence whatsoever about any problems with the tree. We've been over to have a look at the property and the tree and its location, and we've seen a slight crack in a very, very small wall, and we've seen no uplift at all within the block paving. And also, about in 2015, in July 2015, Ground Control Limited, on behalf of Methodist Homes, wanted to carry out some work to the tree, and they employed a professional to do it, and the professional that undertook that work did not report any structural damage that the tree was causing at the time. Since the report was written, we've had 2 other letters from the same lady. One letter provides more objections really to the decision we've made, and I've gone through that, and I still think the recommendation to confirm the TPO is the one we should take. And the other letter is one to do with the public speaking protocol that we have at Planning Committee, which is obviously not for me to comment on. So to conclude, Chair, I would recommend that we confirm without modification TPO 2016 at Epworth House, 3 Stewart Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Anybody? Rob?
Trees can't move, cars can. That should justify our decision, I would have thought, and the recommendation we have before us. If leaves drop on cars, cars can move away, but a tree can't move. Those trees are actually relieve what was a controversial planning application when we dealt with it years ago along there. They're not the most beautiful buildings, but those trees do make it a reasonable street scene, and I think the recommendation is absolutely right. I'm interested in Mrs. McQueen's complaint about why she can't come and speak to us. Perhaps that's something we do need to look at. We have a good protocol on public speakers, but why do we exclude them when it's a matter of trees rather than buildings? It's not really consistent to do that, and I think perhaps at some point in the future we need to revisit that.
Could I just comment, just quickly, just respond to Robin on that? Thanks for those comments, really useful. When we issue a TPO, a lot of people think it restricts anybody doing anything to the tree. It doesn't. This Methodist Homes can apply to do works on that tree, and it's a free application. And if they have evidence at the time that the tree is causing structural damage, then we'll have to look at that as part of that application. But at the moment, we just haven't got that evidence. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Robin. I agree entirely with what you said, actually. I don't think we should have a problem if somebody wants to come in and speak on that. We allow everybody else, and I think we have faith in our offices enough to be able to justify whatever grievances a public speaker has. I'm sure we can answer it. Lucy.
Thank you, and I agree. I think it would be actually helpful to be able to hear what people are thinking about their trees as well as about other things. And I'm not quite sure what the process is for removing a TPO, but maybe we can sort out the situation so that if they were to put in a request to remove the TPO, they'd be able to speak to that. I thought it was really useful evaluation rating and the sheet that's given in the back, so thank you for including that. I think that the Graham Toon, who's listed here as having completed it, has filled it in very cautiously. I think that you know, even the guidance on this sheet suggests that cedars will live for up to 150 to 200 years. It might have difficulty. We might be accepting that it needed to be pruned back by then, but I think the shape is likely to improve. The person, when I went to have a look at it, because I went on a site visit, I asked a couple of people passing by what they thought of it, and one reaction was that, well, it hides the building and therefore it's a good thing. So again, you know, screening unpleasant view might be an added factor that's not been included here as well. So to me, it says two things, and I think they're bigger issues. That when we put in conditions for landscaping, maybe we should be looking sort of this 30, 40 years ahead when we are putting together landscaping schemes. And maybe our officers need to be thinking about that as well. Because I guess that's the sort of age of the building. Is it 30 years? 20 years? Less than that even.
Relatively modern.
And we, you know, if we lose the other trees in that view, then it would certainly be to the detriment of the street, and maybe we should be looking even more positively at that sort of size planting on schemes that we have coming forward.
Yep, okay. Mr. Thiele is going to give us some information.
Yeah, finally. I was just going to say, in terms of the public speaking protocol, we can always review that with the chair and vice chair and talk about whether we want to extend it. Having said that, I mean, the public speaking protocol was brought in primarily to deal with applications, planning applications, and not to deal with orders, and is always within the remit of the chair to allow anybody to speak anyway. Sort of the benefit, having said that, of a protocol is that you get consistency. So you get consistency when chairs change. Not that I'm suggesting that we want to lose you, but we could discuss whether we need to review that. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Fine. Thank you, Stephen. By the way, you can't put your debit card in there. Dom.
I share the views that have already been expressed, but I was also extremely heartened to look at the rationale that goes into a tree protection order, because I think that now knowing that, I think it does give some, I guess it helps us to relax a little in that work is being done initially, especially when you think about the vandalism that has gone on the trees that we looked at a couple of months ago in the Cavendish area of Normanton. I think that it's important that we are protecting our trees and that we're taking our orders very seriously, particularly, I I mean, there is quite a lucrative trade going on of sort of amateur tree surgery that seems to be, you know, a few of my neighbours have just had trees disappear in recent months, and it's just a little bit worrying. And I think that us having a good and firm rationale for how we protect our trees, and that being something that is also publicly available and widely known, helps us to be able to combat that and also reach potential prosecutions when you know, really negative things do occur. So yeah, I will be supporting this.
Thank you, John. Frank.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I paid a visit to this place Tuesday afternoon, about 20 to 3. I noticed there were at least 5 parking places free, well away from the tree. So to me, that was significant. Bears in mind what Councillor Wood said, that cars can be moved and trees can't. I mean, it's significant that trees with TPOs, the only way you can get rid of them is they're either diseased or a danger to the public. So as far as I'm concerned, they can move the cars.
Thank you, Frank. I'll let the drivers know. Anybody else? Councillor Evans.
I agree with the sentiment entirely of my colleagues. I visited the tree just before coming here, and I agree the block paving hasn't moved at all. I didn't even notice a crack in the wall. And the tree likely precedes the building anyway. And could something be built in for future developments where trees are existing to protect the trees over the developments? I don't know if that's possible, but
that's not for discussion tonight.
I know it's not. Thank you.
If nobody else, can we move to the vote? Those in favour of the recommendation? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the exciting part of the night, major site visits. Ian's going to tell us about them.
Thank you, Chair. Number 1 on the list. We've already got Sarah Claxton's arranging the visit for the application we talked about last meeting for the anaerobic digestion facility on the western part of this site. So you might want to look at both components, because the first one is for the biomethane gas to grid plant. It's just further away. So shall we combine the two? Yes.
Yep. What's the distance between the two? Are they in the same area?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The first one, the anaerobic digestion facility, is on the western side, but we'll coordinate it. So, yeah. Second one at Dracker is just a variation of a condition on one of the units, and it's just to provide more office space within that building and less workshop. So I trust that one will go under the radar. Yeah. Chellaston Academy, number 3, relocation of waste collection facilities. It appears to be a fairly minor proposal, but it has generated objections from the Chellaston Residents Association and Councillor Remedial. Probably come before committee. It was something we looked at when it was the application for the large maths block, and it was the position of the waste collection facilities relative to neighbouring properties. So you may want to think about that. And I don't have my light pen, but it's the James, could you move the arrow? Yeah. Up towards the rectangular building. Keep going, keep going. It's about there. Yeah. So it's they're moving them to the more northerly part of the site as part of this variation, and they've explained in their application that they've spoken to the waste operator, and the delivery times, etc., are going to be problematic. So they're proposing to move the facility away from about 30 metres away from neighbouring properties, so to alleviate the issue. But it's still generated objections from third parties, the Residents Association and the councillor. Would you like to go and see precisely where we? No. 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 It's in the process, I understand, of construction. It's the mass block. No.
Next one.
Next one is a large proposal, but you can see it from Derwent Street, Exeter Place. It's a big one, but vantage points all round can be achieved. No. The fifth one, land north of Goodsmoor Road. We had an application here and a permission a good few years ago, an appeal that was allowed. Councillor Shanker Councillor Turner teamed up for that one. Local hearing that we lost was for 106 units, and it's now for 85. It's a site of about 2.6 hectares. You can see it from the road, but if you want to go on the site, we can arrange it. Yep. 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 Okay, Chair? Yep. Yep, so we'll tick for that one. The sixth one is OCOR, just an amendment to one of the approved plans, small potatoes in the context of that scheme, really. No, okay. And then another variation at Lonsdale Place. It's a variation of condition 2, just to tidy up some of the elevations and to amend some of the window positions and bits and pieces. So, shall we just say number 1 at 7 Trent and Goodsmoor Road to be arranged? Sarah's in the process of doing the first one, so we'll crack on with the other one as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, everybody. I realise it's a lengthy meeting and you'll have to try and drive home in the darkness. Complete.